Welcome back, guys. It's Josh and Sam here with the Aussie Screen Printing Club. Sam, how's your day been? How's your week been? It's been a little while.
Yes, it has. Uh, Day's been okay so far.
So far.
Week, far as I can remember, not too bad. Making some headway in the new building,
Hmm.
which is nice. When I say some headway, you kind of go over sometime, like because it's really close. Well, it's really, really
Mm.
where we are. Kind of wander over and chat to the builder, who's building it on his own. That's astonishing. And you kind of look around and think, man, what has he done anything? It looked like this last week. But it's got walls, it's got a roof, it's got the fronts in, doesn't have the big doors in yet. What else? It's got glass in,
Okay.
bathrooms plumbed out, and there's no electricity um, in the building yet, but I know that's coming. Had a huge sit down with the electrician about what we need,
Mm.
because that's been one of the dilemmas for us is, how much power do we really need? And you can never, ever, ever get a straight answer.
No.
Electricians, they're like lawyers. It'd be a like yes or no answer, right? And it's, oh, well, the cross-cut diabulator modulator. And you're like, what are you talking about? Phases and amps. Um, so we've got 150 amps. So we're currently, I think we currently spike at about 70 or 80, but it can go up to 120. I've seen it physically on meters.
Okay.
But everyone has their kind of thing. But so anyway, the point is there's no electricity. Sat down with the electrician to scope out what we need internally because we're doing this big fit out. So we're going to have like a big long, let's talk sensibly. It will be 15 meters long of enclosed, stud partitioned, waterproofed rooms, one of which will be a washout bay. And then there's a little drying area. And then there's the screen room. And then there's the pre-press room. So that
Yeah.
in theory, we can have, quieter, self-contained bits of business there. And then
Mm.
along the other wall at the back, on the other half of the building, we're putting in an office for production director, a smoko room. And I called it a stock room, but I actually have a feeling we'll use it more for heat transfers.
Okay.
So that's all got to be built, but we obviously got to get the right electricity in now and
Right.
drainage and all that kind of stuff. So it's still a long way to go. They're saying, oh, yeah, should be ready for the end of November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Sounds like a bit to put in before then.
and then there's the council's got to sign it off, and you're moving to
Yeah.
Christmas. So I don't know when it will be ready, but if it's ready, then we'll start the fit out and then hopefully move in January.
Okay.
Um, So yeah, kind of got Howard on tenterhooks for the end of January at the moment to move the
Oh, yeah.
press. Um, but yeah, so that was interesting. What else happened with us? Um, oh, something I should say is the slump in sales, if that's what it is,
Hmm.
appears to be over.
Okay.
I was chatting to Joel yesterday, famous, well, I guess
Mm.
rock Australia man really is probably what he is now, but from Dark Label and Jody as well. And apparently their sales have bounced back spectacularly. Ours have bounced back too.
Hmm.
We're about 40% up on the target, whereas the last 3 months we were below target, about 15%. So that's super encouraging. We had the third best month in we've ever done.
Oh,
So
okay. Awesome.
yeah, so it's a bit of a surprise. We're all super happy about that. I'm hoping that's a picture of what's going on out there, that others are feeling
Hmm.
upturn. It's kind of obviously coincided with the change in the in the inflation rates. So I don't know if that's sort of triggering things or that we're just moving to summer, you know.
Do you find it picks up a little bit around this time, like historically, or?
Not in October so much. Um, It's kind of difficult to predict. We look at the figures year by year, month on month, and
Hmm.
a load of stats that we run. Um, for us, what typically happens is August, there's generally a lull. September, it rises. October, it rises. And then November, December skyrocket, but then they fall, obviously, because of the break.
Mm.
Um, and we're preparing a lot for beach missions and kids camps that are happening in, you know, January during the school holidays. So it
Hmm.
always makes the shutdown hard. But so
Right.
it's good to see June, typically April, May, June. There are really, really big months running into
Mm.
winter camps. Um, but yeah, I'd kind of dread January, February a little bit because you're
Mm.
like, it's very quiet. There's not going, I guess it'll be good for us if we get to move, but
Yeah.
yeah. Do
The,
you have similar kind of pattern in your business in terms of revenue?
I haven't really got much to go on, so I'm still sort of figuring it out. But like this year, January, February was very quiet. Um, last year was my first like actual year doing it full time, so it's a little bit hard to compare to then. Last October was I think was quiet for us a little bit. Um, but this one it wasn't bad considering I was away for
Mm, mm,
like half of it. Um, I was expecting it to be a lot worse, but I did have a look and we weren't that much down, sort of considering it was only sort of 2 weeks worth of sales. So
yeah.
that was good, I think. But yeah, I guess just trying to scope out what it's like for everyone else because it's probably going to be similar for us.
Yeah. And I guess it's about the market you're in. So maybe,
Mm,
you're doing more kind of merch sale work for clothing brands, then they're all wanting to stock up for Christmas,
mm,
presumably. So you might get that extra upturn. Um, Whereas us, it's more events, though we do
okay.
some clothing brands. Um, so I guess yeah, and you've got work wear as well. That's one of your big markets, isn't it? So
Yeah.
May, June is a really big time for you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess it'll depend a bit on those kind of things.
mm,
But yeah, what else has been happening? I've got a little list here. You spoke about the revenue. We have a little bell. I think I told you this before. We have a little bell that like a handbell that we hand to Martini in sales here. When she makes the target, she gets to go out and ring it.
that's
That
awesome.
that hasn't happened for a few months, so it's kind of
Yeah.
nice to give her the bell. Oh, the other thing is I went to that rock open house when you were
Yeah.
overseas
Hmm.
in Silverwater, and that was where make merchandise are. That was pretty amazing. Um, it sort of demonstrates to me we need more events where screen printers can get together and just have a good old blather.
Yeah.
There was a ton of people there. I didn't get round half of them.
Mm.
Try to dodge all the salespeople. Um,
Yeah.
It's obviously, I mean, it was
Full event.
amazing. They had I think it was maybe an 18 color, maybe even a 22 color rock, and they had a huge rock oven. That's a shop that I think has 5 autos.
Oh,
And so there were Taz's there, and there was an M&R there, and then the rock. But I tell you what, the rock is nice. I mean, I
yeah.
guess they're all nice, but there's something about that press that is just kind of clean in terms of the functionality. It does what it says on the tin. It's smooth, it's quiet,
Mm.
and yeah, got a little go on that. And Wayne, who's one of the press operators up at Dark Label, gave me a real good tour and really opened the door up on it. So that was amazing. It's good to see other screen printers.
Mm.
Yeah, we need more of those kind of events. I guess we could
Yeah.
knock on the door of manufacturers. I know Howard is still keen to do an open house for Anatole at some point.
Mhm.
Um, they were going to use us, but we're a bit out of the way for them. geographically. So
Yeah.
I think they're kind of looking to set up a site in Sydney to do that. And that sort of thing is good. Get people
Mm.
together and chat. And there are a few talks, good talks from Jody and others about how they got to where they are. So that was a real highlight, going down and seeing that. Got along to see Ben and Taryn, who are running a clothing brand called Thunder and Son out in Blacktown. So went over and saw them. They're just kind of getting going, and
Okay.
I hang out with them a bit and see their setup, and yeah, furnish them with a few tips of mistakes that I made that hopefully they won't make. So that was cool.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, and that's about it really from us, I guess. Same old, same old. Doing a lot more
Hmm.
transfers, doing obviously a lot more printing. Done some really nice sim process that's come through in the last few weeks. It's been
Okay.
nice to do. Had some issues with Sep Studio in creating those. I was so
Hmm.
close to outsourcing those Seps in the end,
Hmm.
but managed to get that solved. They just updated the software and it doesn't work in the same way in terms of how we use it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean that's been pretty much it. Life is cool. But you have been to Japan on your
Hmm.
honeymoon.
That's
How
it.
did that
Yeah.
how did that all go? How did you enjoy Japan?
It was awesome. Um, it like we, yeah, rolled in there and we got, yeah, just, it was pretty full on. There's just heaps of people compared to what we're sort of used to here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but no, it was awesome. Great experience. Saw a lot of cool stuff, tried a lot of cool things, a few interesting foods. Um, but yeah, the trains and stuff are super handy. It's just like you don't even have to think. Once you've sort of figured it out how it all works and you've got a good app or whatever, yeah, it's pretty easy to do everything. We didn't really struggle um, with like the language and stuff too much. You sort of just need the first, like those couple words that seem to get you through most things. Um, but yeah, it was yeah, it's really cool. And the whole place ran fine without me,
I
which
was
is
going to ask that. How did you feel about that? Were you kind of continually worrying about it, or were you able to just kind of put it to bed and get
mm,
on with your holiday? I mean,
I think I did better than I thought I would. I guess like it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind. Like being so far away, you sort of had to disconnect a little bit. And then I had some issues with like my phone and stuff for the first week because we had like an eSIM and it just wasn't really doing it. It would work sometimes and then
mm,
wouldn't, so end up just turning on the roaming. So um, that sort of made me have to not do much. But we were so busy that I didn't even have time to like sit down and be on my laptop too much. So, um, but yeah, I think yeah, it was fine. Like I just sort of came to terms with like I'd told everyone it's probably going to be quiet the first few weeks when I get back. It's gonna cost a bit of money, but like yeah, it's a honeymoon, so
cost
um
cost a bit in terms of loss of sales.
yeah, that's it. Like yeah, still got the same costs, I guess, but yeah, we're just yeah, but um no, it was awesome, and I don't think we had any sort of problems while I was away. The girls did an awesome job, so
That's encouraging,
um
isn't it?
yeah, yep, and they tried to not bother me, so it was nice because um we have a graphic designer and someone in production, so they sort of know both sides of it a little bit more, so they just worked it out between the two of them if there was anything, so that was handy.
That's good.
Mm.
But you've also, I want to describe you as someone that doesn't do things by halves, because you not only have you just moved to new premises, and how long have you been in the new premises? 5 weeks?
be be 2 months now, I think.
2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. But not only have you done that, You've done some other pretty amazing things as well. Do you want to tell all?
I did have time to do some marketplace shopping while I was away.
Oh, okay.
And bought an automatic, so that was pretty cool.
This is the problem with taking holidays.
That's right, yeah. A bit of spare time while you're sitting on marketplace. So yeah, that popped up and I was like, oh, when I planned to move here, I sort of scoped it out that we'd have enough power and space and stuff. But I was sort of thinking we'd probably get like an 8 or a 10 color or something. And now we have a 12 color TAS, which takes up a bit more space than I thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
And
pretty cool.
did you have to go far? Like you didn't have to ship it up from Adelaide or something? Was it?
No, it's just in Brisbane, except it had to be out by a certain, like within a few days. And so we were flying in back from Japan on the Sunday, and it had to be out by like Monday or Tuesday by the latest. So I didn't get a chance to see it at all. I just sort of went for it and then um, just contacted the tech and then had a bit of a chat to him and Tass. And yeah, he pulled it down on the weekend. And this
Wow.
is, I think I probably hit them up the Tuesday, like it was sort of all within a week. But then it was also while I was away, so I'm like trying to organize stuff, and I had to find like a truck to like bring it up here as well, and the tech to pull it apart. So it was a busy few days, and yeah, a little bit sketchy, like trying to book things and just hope that it works.
Yeah, wow.
But lucky, yeah,
Brisbane,
Brizzy's not too bad.
yeah, I was going to say 100K, roughly 120K.
Yeah, sort of 2 hours away from us where it was about that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wow. And so it's assembled yet? What stage have you got it at?
It's taking up a lot of space at the moment. It's got pallets strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, because it wasn't planned at all. Um, now I need to. The thing is, it's an older model, so it's got pneumatic heads. So it needs like this huge compressor. I think it needs to be like um 80 CFM, um,
Wow.
which isn't cheap. It's sort of if it could be like 70, they seem like a pretty good price. But as soon as you get over that, they jump pretty big. So
Right.
need to save up for a big compressor and then install. And luckily, when we moved here, I negotiated our landlord to put some power around the place, just sort of thinking ahead and seeing what I could get them to throw in for free. So that's nice. We've got probably the majority of the power where it needs to be, but we probably need a little bit more. So another two outlets probably for flashes, and then um, yeah, and then we can get it set up.
So you've got, did you say a 12 color?
Yeah,
12 color. How many flashes have you got?
yep, three, but we're a
Um,
little bit sus on them to see how like on how good they are with how well they work.
right.
There are a few dribs and drabs that were left over, so um, yeah,
And you
we're
got a new oven as well, didn't you?
yeah, and I scored an oven as well. So sorry, my chair's doing funky things. um, yeah, and then we got an oven to suit as well. So um, yeah, pretty much set once we can get that other stuff sorted.
I guess you can take your time as well. You don't need to have it up and running tomorrow, but man, that sounds like a crazy re-entry into the country.
Yeah,
Suddenly got to go and pick up a press.
yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
So yeah,
So
pretty
have you got
excited.
a plan when you think you might have it ready or like a strategy around that or
Yeah, I'm hoping sort of maybe January probably. Um, depending on how much stuff I can sell before then,
Mm,
pretty
mm,
much. Um, but yeah, like you said, we're not in that much of a rush for it, so it's probably a good thing. But um, yeah, it will be nice to have. It'd be good to sell the manual carousel and all that stuff.
mm,
It'd be nice.
mm. So you heard it here first. There's one of those for sale.
Yeah,
Uh,
hit me
it's a
up.
six color manual, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Six color
Right.
Gilroy.
You won't know yourself with 12 colors. That's incredible.
Be great.
But not only that, you've done some other things. You've rebranded yourself. You've created new logos and things, haven't you?
Mm. We've had honestly had it for like a year, and we've sort of been using it on most of our newer stuff. All our like hoops is branded with it. Um, but I just wanted to figure out the website first before I changed everything over. So that's been a lot longer process than I really expected it to.
Mm,
But we finally got that sort of sorted
mm.
and then launched it properly. So that'll be nice that people sort of don't see the social media and website looking one way and then they get all the job updates from a different logo. Um,
So what was the
so
thinking behind that? Why did you want to rebrand?
I just didn't love the previous brand or logo. It was fine, but the actual icon and the logo, someone just mentioned it that it looked like a certain like unpopular um icon from like World War Two, and I've never been able to.
What, the swastika? What's wrong with
Yeah,
that?
I reckon
I don't even remember what it looked like.
it looks a little bit like our logo, our old logo.
How bizarre.
Um, and I haven't been able to like unsee it ever since. So
Okay.
I was like, no, we're going to introduce a little bit more color because it was just sort of black and white.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a little bit fresher, um, a bit more put together. So
Have
that
you
was nice.
trademarked your logos? Do you do any of that sort of thing?
I haven't yet.
Probably worth doing. We've trademarked two of ours.
Hmm.
I think we've got four or even five different logos, but we predominantly use two for different things. And I decided to get them trademarked. I used to have a, a good sized consulting firm in transformational change in government, and our logos and our name and everything, when we went to trademark it, we discovered that a legal firm had already trademarked it.
Oh,
Yeah, and that really peeved me.
oh, looking for like they just hunt around for names that aren't. Ah.
Yeah, and I contacted them directly, and they said, they were in their rights to do that. And I said, well, I think there's a legal case for us to take it off you. And they said, well, we've got unlimited legal fees because they're
Mm.
right. And I said, well, is it for sale? And they said, yes. And I can't remember how much they asked for it, maybe 70 grand or something. And I said, no, you can keep it. And if you want to sue us for using your name, go for it. Because
Hmm.
I think there is a case to answer. And apparently they've done that with lots of companies.
Mm.
So it's kind of clear that they're looking for business, as it were. But yeah, I think it's worth doing. I think it's
Is it
about,
a hard process to do?
not really, no. You've got to be careful. It's basically an online process where you fill in a form,
Mm.
but there are a lot of caveats in that form that you've got to be real careful about in terms of the use of the logo. I think it's about $700.
Okay.
Takes about, I think it takes 6 months,
Oh wow.
but then it has to rest for a year without challenge for an
Uh,
international one. Um, but yeah, we got it. Got the certificate somewhere. So yeah, it's just a government site.
mhm.
Pay your money. I think there's a fee you can get them to review it before it's submitted. I'd recommend that because there are
Okay.
like, as I say, caveats to the usage of it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if any of our listeners do that, um, and whether they think it's worthwhile. All right, so honeymoon, Japan, landing, new press,
Mhm.
new logo. Are you creating a new brand story within that, or is it just a new logo?
It's mostly just new logo. Everything else is much the same. We did get a fair bit of stuff done. I sort of used two like marketing or like creative places that sort of did it for us.
Mhm.
Um, and they put some stuff together for us, I guess. So I've sort of weaved that in there a little bit, but sort of taken it our own direction a little bit since then.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, much the same, just different look.
Yeah, fair enough. And not only that, you've launched a new website though.
Mm,
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? This is Deco Network, right?
that's right, yeah. So it's all built on Deco, so we're changing over to them. Um, Probably finish off like testing everything next week, and then um, just hit it hard the following week and hope for the best. Um, but yeah, it's that took a bit of time to get it sort of looking good, but then also the back end, getting that all set up is a big job. And making sure that everything is like working correctly. Um, but yeah, so that's been a work in progress. I started with Deco probably like July last year, and then tried it for a bit, but it was only me back then. Um, and I didn't really need such a full-on sort of management thing. Took me longer to actually do the everything like in the software than it did for me to just do the work kind of thing. Um, but so we moved to Hoops, which is a lot easier, but I found it's a bit harder to uh, put as much information with the jobs um, through there, like in the production side of things, as I'd like. Um, so I'd find myself just like chatting to Kate and saying, make sure you do this and that, even though, yeah, when you get to it. But they're like sales side of it, super easy. So they do a really good job of that. But the production side, I just wanted a little bit more control. Um, so
So
we
the
moved to,
management, the shop management element to it. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
it's very easy to use. Um, but I think that's also its like downfall a little bit. But as a sort of, yeah, it depends what you're looking for in a software, I guess.
Mm.
Um, so that we went with Hoops, and that's been awesome. We've been with them for like probably a year now. And yeah, before we moved to Hoops, it cancelled like the deco stuff, but then I started looking again, and what we what I sort of would like to do um, is pretty much what deco offers. So um, end up looking back into them and figuring out a bit of stuff, and then biting the bullet, and then actually getting stuck into it. So now we've got a couple of people working here. That extra um, sort of information on the back end is going to be really helpful.
Mm. And
So,
so the premise is it's um, sort of like ERP in a way. It's fully integrated from the front end, from the web through to
mm,
the actual shop processes in the back. So you can take, so it's also integrated. You use QuickBooks or something, don't you? Yeah.
yeah,
Is it integrated to that as well?
yeah. You can do other softwares. My bookkeeper's on me to change, so we might move softwares, but I might just move like not do the counting straight away, not do everything moved at once. It
Fair
stresses
enough.
me out a little bit.
Are they keen
Um,
to get you on zero out of interest?
yeah, they
Yeah.
really want me on zero.
Yeah. Okay. So it integrates with that. And does it take payments as well?
Hmm.
It's a payment
Yeah,
gateway. Is that
still says.
Stripe or is that some other?
Yeah, they call it like Deco Pay, but it's just a Stripe gateway.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in theory, it'd be like someone like the print locker. So they come into you, they come to your website and they basically do a design upload and use
Mm.
the mock-ups themselves, tell you the sizes and colors and everything, and then they actually can buy it through the front end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the print locker used Deco Network, so yeah, exactly the
Right.
same.
Okay.
And it's really strong in embroidery, which is good for us. We can have and that's all done, like our threads in the back end, and you sort of throw your logo in, and it'll like color map that logo um, to
Wow.
your closest thread. And if you don't like it, you can choose another one. But I think even just the amount of time saved, sort of picking thread colors and putting them on the proof and stuff, um, and the mock-up time because it's sort of done at the back end. It's sort of like a designer in the back end as well.
Yeah.
Um, just that time saved in that will sort of it's more expensive than hoops. It's probably like twice as much, but I think yeah, we'll save a few $100s a month in like graphic designer fees, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
So that counterbalances the extra cost for the software.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and I think what I liked about it is when I add someone to sort of the sales side of things, they don't necessarily need to know everything about everything. There's a bit more. I think people get the shits a little bit because it restricts you in a way, but that's also handy if you want things to run like in a certain process. It
Yeah.
has to go a certain way. So, but it also like for embroidery, it estimates the number of threads. So we're charging the right amount for embroidery because if you don't have that much experience with embroidery, you can sort of um, lose lose some good money pretty quickly by sort of thinking a logo might take 10 minutes, but it'll actually take half an hour. And I'm experienced and I still do that all the time. So um, yeah, I think that side of things will be a lot handy to have.
Wow. And are you able to see, like, if someone, this might be too much info, I don't know at the
Mhm.
moment, but if someone starts to create a design in the site, but does and gets a price, are you
Mhm.
able to, but doesn't go forward with the sale? Is there, you're able to see what they've done, or is it
There
just
is
lost? Or
there is an abandoned cart feature in there. I don't know how it works yet. They might have to at least get to the checkout and put their email in first. Um, but I'm not sure how many people will use that. The designer. It would be nice if they did because that'd be awesome. But there's also like an instant quote type thing, so you can sort of pick the garment and decoration, and it'll give you a rough price based on like our prices,
Hmm,
and then you can go to the designer. So at
hmm,
least it sort of weeds people out that like how much is a t-shirt kind of
sure.
thing. They can just jump on there whenever it suits them and get a quick price, and then if they're keen, um, they can proceed, I guess.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I like the idea that someone can do that, but I don't like the idea that we lose that contact with them.
Mm,
So, the alternative is to do what we do and what I guess you used to do, and that is to get forms filled out and into our system here, create the mock-up and the quote and send it back to them.
mm,
But it allows us to start to have, a relationship with the customer. We've got a system for chasing and how you going and
mm,
what did you think of the price and so on. Um, and that's the bit I kind of worry about with a system
mm,
like that. Um, but I guess you're also weeding out what we might call time wasters.
mm.
People that come on and just want the lowest dollar price. You've gone through creating a mock-up, maybe another one, maybe another one,
Yeah.
and they never come back with the sale. So maybe it's more beneficial to do that. Um,
Mm.
Yeah, I'm really interested in it since you mentioned it a few episodes ago. I thought, yeah, that's the future. But I wondered about, this might be a bit ostentatious, but about
Mm.
creating another brand just to kind of build that side of the business. So you kind of have both in a way that you have
Yeah.
this kind of more rich customer service, customer interaction model that we currently run, but also this other type model. Someone like the Print Locker, they're a DTG specialist, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so they're
Mm.
doing small runs. They're not doing screen printing. And,
Hmm.
someone will come on for one t-shirt with a design or three different designs on, single t-shirts each. And I think that that works perfectly for them because they're capturing that market that we currently can't do anyway until we,
Mm.
get a DTG printer or anything. You ever thought about that? Just digressing for a minute, getting DTG or a film printer or
I've I've been thinking pretty hard about getting not I'd probably get a roll one maybe next year. We do a lot of DTF now, but I've thought about getting like a brother GTX DTG and converting it to DTF.
yep,
It's about the same price as what we buy it in for at the moment, but the one that we like to use comes from Melbourne, so it's the shipping time that's the biggest thing for us.
sorry, that's the
Um,
company that you currently get to do your DTF. Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So there's
Um,
a delay on getting it to you 3 days once it's in the post.
Usually, if it doesn't ship Tuesday, we won't get it until the following Monday. If we're
Oh,
lucky, we might get it Friday, but
okay.
usually, yeah. So that would be the main reason.
The driver for doing it would just be to have the printer yourself and
Mm,
print them off. Now that's going to be sheet based, isn't it? If you used a brother, yeah, okay. Because
yeah,
basically, what you're saying is you'll take a DGG printer and convert it to DTF. So
yeah,
you put in A3 sheets rather than a roll.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
lot slower. Like the pace that we print it, it can probably only do half of that. But yeah, it's I've thought about it if we do some of it in-house and then we still get the bigger stuff done, um, not in-house. I
Mm.
don't know. I've been I've been thinking about it though. But we also have it like it is so nice just ordering it and it turns up and it's sweet. Um,
I like
if
that
you
part of it, I have to say.
yeah, you don't have to stuff around with. I don't like printers at the best of times, so
Let someone
yeah,
else worry about that. And it's their
exactly.
labor. We, as you know, we use Supercolor, but we're also starting to use a company on main and in Australia, in Supercolor in New Zealand.
Hmm.
And so they've produced a different kind of transfer, which I really like. And actually fooled one of the printers here the other day by saying, what do you reckon? Is this screen
Hmm.
print? They were like, yeah, obviously. And it wasn't, it was a transfer.
Okay.
So I'm quite into that. And we're doing some wash tests and trialing a few different things out with it at the moment. But the key thing is you have just said, well, actually, it's cheaper by far or significantly than Supercolor. But the main thing for us is it's here in 2 days.
Mm,
And, we're nowhere near as big as Toowoomba. We're just a little town, region New
yeah.
South Wales, and still it gets here in 2 days. So I'm keen to kind of explore that. The thing, though, about taking a DTG printer and turning it into a DTF, why don't you just print as a DTG, stick the t-shirt on? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is there any
I think
real extra benefit?
I think it would just be like the pre-treatment. That seems like the bit that everyone hates for DTG.
Sure.
Um, and I think it's about a similar sort of speed, um, of the amount that you can do per hour, but you just don't have to pre-treat. Um, and most of the garments we do are dark colors, I guess. So if you're pre-treating most of the time,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know.
And I guess you could always run off some spares, right?
Mm,
Just put them on the shelf in case there's an issue. Just, pull it off and print another one, press another one.
yeah, especially. if people do start ordering through the website, that would be sort of ideal. It'd be sweet to have two of them going because that would sort of be the speed that we like print DTF at the moment. Um, but even yeah, it's about the same price if you just had like I was thinking maybe someone working between school hours that just comes in and prints the machine, like sits on the machine all day. It works
Mm,
out the same price, but you just wouldn't get as much done per hour.
mm, mm.
So,
Well, on that subject, I was speaking to Rock this week about the Impress. Are you familiar with
mm,
that press?
that's cool.
Um, it's, yeah, I'm going to be corny and say it totally impressed me, but let's keep the dad jokes away. Um, there's one coming into the country, I believe in May next year,
Oh yeah.
show going on in Sydney where it's going to be, shown off. Really, really keen to have a look at it. But I think they were kind of asking me, well, are you going to ditch screen printing? And I was like, well, no, absolutely not. But the Impress does, they reckon 500 an hour with three people. And there is an upgraded version that you can just do with one person and it can be 3 to 500 an hour. So I was thinking about, wow, you could get three of those. Still have the same number of staff.
hmm
There's no need for a tunnel dryer,
Mm,
no wash up, there's no ink everywhere, there's no reclaiming screens, there's no film. It's kind of attractive, right?
mm,
Dependent on the quality of the actual transfer. That's what interests me and the type of ink that's on that.
yeah.
But there's no way, if I had an order of, I don't know, 1,000 black t-shirts with a white print on the front and the
hmm
back, there's no way I'd put that on a DTF. You know what I mean? It's still, for high color, low quantity, I still think DTF's definitely good, but it
Mm,
might be good for order of 1,000, which has got, beautiful color print on it. But then we do get customers that say, no, it's got to be a screen print, or they'll just checking this is screen printing you're going to do. It's not one of those
mm,
transfers. Um, and obviously we want to make sure we get that right. But I certainly like the look of the Impress and yeah, would probably want to get my hands on one, I reckon.
hmm With the auto peel and stuff.
I gather that's ridiculous. Not, I got to be careful what I say. I gather that's quite expensive
Mm,
as an add-on, but you can add it on later.
okay.
So I'd like to see first how it works without that.
Have
Um,
you ever tried doing it on your auto with like the Stampinator? No.
no, and before we had the Stampinator, that was an ambition,
Mm,
without a doubt. But and I can see how it would work. You'd want two Stampinators really,
mm,
because you'd want to do a pre-press, put the transfer on, and a post-press. With the Rock, what it does is you load the shirt, it does a pre-press, transfer goes on, um, and then it does the heat press for 5 seconds,
I does
and
it
then
in
it
two,
moves
hey?
to another one. Yeah, it's got two heat press
Mm,
heads for that, so it does another one, and then you peel after that. So it need to be on another press. It would need to be a minimum of two stampinators. But the biggest issue isn't setting it up so much. Like it needs different platens, or it needs platen covers. And the
mhm.
moment you do, because they've got to be thicker and they've got to have a little bit of give in them, sort of
Right.
more than the standard kind of rubber on a metal platen. And the problem with that is you've got to adjust the height of the print heads to cope with that every time. We're using
Yeah.
stampinators to on normal screen prints. So they're at a different height again. I mean, it's not impossible, but
hmm
if you were only, if you had a press dedicated just to film, to transfers, then that would be fine. But because
Yeah.
we're using it predominantly to print, several thousand a week, we don't want to have to change it to do a few transfers or whatever.
Mm,
So, but that was certainly a key sales point for us when we bought it.
okay.
It just hasn't come to fruition.
I guess with the rock, like if it was a rock that you had to do it, it'd be easy to peel it manually as well. That'd be the other thing. You've got to try and get around the print head to try and peel it, which would be a pain. But at least with the rock, it has the heads that pick up or lift up.
Absolutely.
You might be able to reach in there a bit better.
Absolutely.
Mm,
You'd probably want to, on the Nano or on any other press, you probably want to remove a head completely so that there's
yeah.
this really clear bay and you can just peel it off there. But on, a 10 color or a 12 color like yours, it's kind of a lot of wasted heads.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Um,
big job to set up.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we haven't tried it.
Mm,
Um, we actually don't, and I know that Jody would testify to this at Dark Label. We actually don't use the Stampinator instead of a flash, which is one of the things that it is sold on. And I'm certain people do it,
mm,
but we don't have enough confidence in it to do that.
mm,
You know how much control you need on how well flash cured that underbase is. Um, it just doesn't feel right. And you know what it's like? You're printing all the time and you think, oh, we must test that out. And then you go, well, let's not test it on this job,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't want this to go wrong for this customer. So I'm sure we probably could get to it. And it would be, man, it would save a lot on electricity rather than running a flash.
Okay.
Um, but it certainly produces a beautiful print. If you've got particularly on something like a fleece, if you've got a
Mm,
chunky underbase to go on, flatten that out, get rid of all the defibrillation, the
yeah.
fibrillation, and the top colors are going to just be really nice and really smooth. Um, but yeah, I like the impress. I like the concept behind it, and I'm hoping that Anatole and M&R and everyone else will do their version of that
Mm,
because it's clearly got a market. You know,
yeah.
we've got two heat presses, one which is a standard clamshell, manual one, and the other one's an automatic one with compressed air, which is just fantastic. But even that, is slow.
Mm,
It is heat pressing is slow. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Compared.
yeah, if you're used to putting a nice full color print on a normal screen printer, you know, on an auto, you're going to be spitting one out every 4 to 6 seconds. Well, you're looking, I know it
Yeah.
sounds a bit pathetic, but you're looking at 30
Mm,
for a heat press. And
yeah.
people listening might go, yeah, whatever, big deal. But if you're doing thousands in a week, it makes a huge difference, right? So, um, yeah, watch this space. But I'm going to go down to the show. That's called Print Pack in Sydney.
Okay.
And in May next year, I'm going to have a look at this. Maybe even make them an offer off the stand. That's a good way
Yeah.
to get one. But yeah, first I've got to move premises. Um, so just a quick thing, going back to your new purchase with an auto and a new tunnel, you saw that marketplace on Facebook, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you
There,
keep like a watching brief on stuff for sale or
I just have a little gander every now and then. I'll go through and like look at each city, I guess, around, see what's up, depending on what I'm sort of thinking about. Um, yeah, just a little finger on the pulse
yeah,
in case something does come up, and it worked out pretty awesomely.
yeah. I know Tyler um, from T-Shack, who occasionally does some printing for us. Shout out to him. He's a great printer. He kind of keeps a watching brief of hardware
Hmm.
online, and sometimes he buys it to resell.
Oh,
That's
okay.
that he does, which probably annoys people like Howard a bit, but why not? And there apparently is so much secondhand stuff available out there at the moment, that
Hmm.
people are, not everyone wants a brand new rock. It's going to cost a lot of money or an
Yeah.
Anatole or whatever it is. And you can save money on the first press. I get it completely. Um, so yeah, I mentioned about having a new supplier for transfers. Certainly worth looking around. I got that tip from you because you've tried a few different businesses in
Mm.
different areas. Um, I'm always a little bit nervous about the relationship with companies like that around terms. Because
Hmm.
if you ask for terms, they go, well, what do we need that for? And I'm like, well, we're giving you artwork from our customers,
Yeah.
you know. And I understand how the whole artwork copyright thing works, but you know who our customers are. So
Do
yeah.
they print as well? Like they don't just supply
Well, the
the.
one that we use do their own clothing brand as well.
Okay.
But they say they don't print, other prints for them for, their own market. They don't take on customers like us, but I don't know. I'm going to jump on a plane at some point and go see them and see if I can work out a kind of longer term relationship set up
Mm.
with them. Also, they don't have the same kind of streamlined process in terms of how to interact with them, which has been good
Yeah.
in one sense because we've got more kind of hands-on interaction. But I frankly don't have time. I just want to upload it, set it, and
Yeah.
forget, right? But yeah, it's been good so far. We're quite excited about it. Other thing that happened to us is we lost a member of staff who, um, yeah, decided he like many people, he didn't want to clean screens and came in and said, I don't want to clean screens. I don't like the chemicals. It's boring. Um, can you utilize me elsewhere? And I said, no. So he's gone. And I laugh a bit because, I mean, he's great. We love the guy. And, you know, I try to coax him back with the offer of better money this week, but he wasn't up for it. But I laugh at it. But what it's meant is we're way behind on screens. And
Hmm.
even I, the worst screen cleaner that we've got was out cleaning screens, reclaiming screens this week. And I've given up on um, degreasing. I just dehaze everything now because that
Oh yeah.
degreases well. But yeah, you get to the point where you're just, you've got rid of all the emulsion and you look at it and go, I'm just going to dehaze that. And you just get it done. So,
Yep.
um,
Do you use an all-in-one like the dehaze degrease, or is it? Yep.
yeah, yeah. Um, and we've got a new technique for cleaning screens, which
Okay.
seems to be working better, quicker. But yeah, it was just like, I went into the area where we clean our screens. There's like 100 screens, and the guys
Mm.
are just printing. And I was like, oh no, we got to get some screens reclaimed. Um, so yeah, we lost him, and I said to Lydia, "Do you want me to start advertising?" And she's like, "Nah, let's do that next year. We're just
Hmm.
trying to get through until we move." Um, yeah, and I did have that sort of temptation of, oh, I'll just go and buy a bunch of screens off Shane, and but it's kind of it's pointless after a while.
Mm.
End up with 500 screens, but you still have 100 of them. It might be the 190s that you need, or you look
Yeah.
in the room and there's only 2090s left, and you've got three simulated process jobs to do or something. And so,
Do
yeah,
you have like a lot of different mesh counts, or you just try and streamline it?
we just use three, well, four.
Yeah.
So we use 43s, 77s, and 90s. We
Okay.
would, and I know there's a lot of kind of artisan snobbery about this, but we just do what works. And I think with the Stampinator, we get away with a lot more than we would. So we're predominantly, except for a big sim process job, we'd use a 43 for an underbase pretty much every time.
Hmm.
Additional color would always be on a 77 unless there's a lot of colors. And also, we find certain inks are more sticky than others.
Mm.
So we might put them in as 90s. Obviously, simulated process, we'd put on a 90. And then a gold ink or a silver ink or anything with, sparkles in it, bits in it. We use is it 39 or 36?
Okay.
Pretty big open mesh. We use yellow mesh apart from on those 39s.
Hmm.
39, I get confused. and they're white mesh. But all the others are yellow. We find that they're better for exposing.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that's all we would use. Is that kind of what you would do as well?
Yeah, I've got a fair few bits and pieces, I guess, now, but now that we're going to auto, I can start fresh. So
Yeah, right.
um I reckon I'm just gonna yeah, probably have like three is what I was thinking. Um and just make it easy.
Yeah. So you got to get new screens, of course.
Mm,
You got to get bigger
yeah.
screens.
Gotta get also yeah, they're massive too compared
They're
to like
huge.
what I'm used to. It's a
They're huge.
like, you sure this is the right size?
Yeah, that does take a bit of getting used to. Um, but you do need them. You need the length. I mean, you need the width,
Mm,
obviously, but the length needs to be there because it's not something I ever thought about. But because you've got a flood bar as well as a squeegee,
yeah,
got space between the two, you need that extra length both sides to make sure you can flood all the way and you can print all the way back. So
okay.
you can print on the usual size for manual press, but your print length
Yeah,
is
left
is
chest
that much
only.
shorter. Yeah. So you have to get the bigger ones, but yeah, you'll get used to that like pretty quickly.
Yep.
We still keep the old ones, the small ones.
Mhm.
Um, because we're obviously still running manuals as well. And when we move back in, we'll move into the new place. We're going to get the 8 color back out and swinging. So
Okay.
want to want to do some things on that. Um, and we aren't brave enough to get rid of the manual press. The Anatole has been solid from
Hmm.
day one. A couple of niggling problems that we got resolved, but in terms of the unit, it's been solid. But you still think, if it does go out for a day
Hmm.
or something. Um, so it wouldn't be much fun switching back to a manual, but at least we could do it if we need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we got the other little 4 color manual that I don't know, may get rid of that or something. I kind of
Hmm.
don't like getting rid of stuff.
Hmm.
I kind of think, oh, keep that. That's pretty good. Um, but yeah. So yeah, down one member of staff, trying to clean screens myself. The guy's laughing at me because I'm pretty hopeless at all of that. I've forgotten how backbreaking it is actually. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much everything at our end. Anything
Mhm.
else at your end you wanted to raise? We got some listener questions.
Sounds good. Let's hit them.
All right. Well, big thanks to everyone that responded to a request I put out a bit short notice for listener questions, and I got a few here. Some are we've got tons of them, to be honest. So we probably can't go through them all at the moment. We've mentioned sim process a little bit, and Nathan Winall. I just noticed his name's Winall. That's got to be a good surname, right? Winall, who's in WA from Screen Printing Australia, a former guest on this show, has just asked, if we know any good resources for sim process separations. He uses ultra seps. I remember that conversation. And we got ultra seps actually.
Uh-huh.
Um, he said it'd be nice to know about manually doing them to improve. Yeah. I don't know. Did you want to comment on that one? I've got a couple of things I can say, I think.
Honestly, can't say much about sim process. Haven't done much of it at all.
There's a few options. One is you can learn to do the seps yourself in Photoshop. Something I probably should say, I think most printers will know this, that everyone rightly wants to use a vector in AI, but
Mhm.
when you use a RIP, it switches the vector back to a raster image, which is what a RIP is, and obviously turns that into halftones. So for some people, if they're doing it manually, they just work in Photoshop, starting with a
Mhm.
raster. Contrary to popular belief, Photoshop is not for vectors, as some people seem to think it is, and actually do the separations manually in there. And I know that there are some resources online that will teach you how to do that. It's
Hmm.
super clunky, although you can get more control over each color. And what's the name of that fella? Um,
Mikey Design, is it?
yeah, that's it. He's
Yeah.
got a product, doesn't he? What's that called?
We that's Action Seps.
Yeah.
We just down I think we downloaded it like last week. I haven't touched it yet though. We got the I don't know if we got both. We got the DTF version to try. Yeah,
And
it's got
that's
some
in
good stuff.
Photoshop, right?
That's in Photoshop, yeah.
Yeah. So that's actions that you add on or into Photoshop that will
Mm,
perform some of this. Probably worth looking at. Certainly, he knows how to do a good sim process job and has lots of videos on that. So that's Mikey Designs, Matt at Mikey Designs. Um, but there are others there as well. We occasionally outsource the graphics source,
mm,
but also use Sep Studio with Accurip. And I always complain it's a bit of a clunky piece of software. It still is,
mhm.
but it's getting better actually with each upgrade. And we do something a bit different. And even the guys um, that own Action Seps, which I think is Solutions for Screen Printers, I think that's what they're called, found it a bit funky what we do. But what we do is we open the artwork up inside Sep Studio and work on the Seps and bring up the color balancing. And we do that manually. We'll do a bit of work on the artwork. Once you know, so what it looks like on the screen is never ever what it will look like when you
Mm.
come to print. But after a while, you start to know actually that green will need to be a bit more intense, or that red needs to drop off a bit, or we need to reduce the highlight white. You kind of know it a little bit. Because nothing worse than setting up a 10 color job and someone coming and going, this red doesn't work, or.
Yeah.
Um, so that's good, but we do something else with it because I don't like the way everything gets turned into a raster. So we do something really funky. What we do is we use Sep Studio, get the image right, we drop it into Accurip, and we output it from Accurip to a PDF. This might sound a bit laborious, but bear with me. We then bring it into a template that we run in AR in Illustrator, and we will manually reconnect vectors to bits of the image that don't need to be rastered. So I'll give you an example.
Mm.
Did a job just the other day for a musical artist, and it was one of those kind of really nice photographs, which was basically a black and white image, but we did an underbase, a grey, and a highlight white. I think, yeah, and we did black as well. And it had her signature at the bottom, big squirrely kind of white signature, and it just looks naff. Put out as a rastered image when that could be just a solid vector.
Mhm.
So as I say, we'll output from Sep Studio to Accurip, drop it from Accurip to a PDF, and bring the PDFs into Illustrator and obviously line up the marks. And then we'll take that signature and we'll overlay it with a choke on the underbase and the highlight white in that case. And so you get this really nice sim process image and these really strong, thick vectors for the rest of it.
Mhm.
And we had some issues with Sep Studio because they upgraded it and took away the feature to export it as a PDF.
Ah,
They said, "Oh, if you're going to do that, just use a TIFF because you can export as a TIFF and maybe an EPS, capsulated PostScript." So I started using the TIFFs and it kept printing out with moire all over it. And I went back to them and said, this is garbage. They said, "Oh, print straight from Accurate to the printer." And I said, "No, this is what we do." And they were like, "Oh, that's clever." So anyway, we created a way that we could still get it out as a PDF and do that. But that's what we use, Nathan, and it works fine, but you have to kind of know it and know its limitations a bit and work with it a bit till you get exactly what you want. I guess there's no perfect solution.
Mm.
whether it's Ultra Seps, Sep Studio, or Action Seps. Um, and you do occasionally meet screen printers that are just old school and just do it themselves, and they just know how to do it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I'd say not knowing much about Ultra Seps, we do have it, but I think it's more of a rip than anything else. So it might, I don't know, it might produce CMYKs. I'm not exactly sure, but you get a lot of control in Sep Studio. Not cheap though,
Okay.
not a cheap product.
No,
Um, or just give it to Graphic Source, be the other one,
I've done usually.
and they usually do a good job.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. We've had a little bit of trouble, but it is, yeah, it's probably nicer having it, doing it in house. You can adjust what you need to.
Exactly. If there's something wrong on press, it can take
Mm.
a day to get a response from the guys. I think they're in Texas, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, depends which one's doing it. Yeah.
Okay, Matt Dixon, Heaps Good Print Shop, recently back from his honeymoon, has asked a ton of questions. That's okay. Emulsion, Diazo or no Diazo?
Mm.
Um, for those that don't know what that is, Diazo is an element that you add to the emulsion by mixing it in. It turns it into a photographic exposable emulsion. I find it awful, to be
Mhm.
honest, having to mix that in. What about you? What do you do?
I always used to use a dual cure until, yeah, this year I swapped. And it's one you can use it or you don't have to. Sort of, you can do it either way. Um, but yeah, I was like, I always had it because I was like, oh, what if I want to print water base? I was like, we're not printing water base or anything funky.
Yeah,
And it lets you can keep your emulsion for longer. It doesn't go off sort of as quick. Um, yeah, no Diazo for me.
no Diazo for Josh, no Diazo for Sam. The faff of doing it um, kills me, and you always end up breathing it in, and it's not good for you. I think it's bromide, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty interesting color.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing. It's not real good if you get it on your hands or anywhere.
Mm.
But yeah, the time taken in mixing it up, and we just haven't got time to do that. We
Do
buy,
you, oh, sorry,
well, that's okay.
on your bigger runs, have you noticed any like screen breakdown or because you do bigger runs than me?
Yeah, no, no.
No.
Occasionally, you might get a little bit of breakthrough, because autos put so much pressure on the screen. Sometimes, if the edges of your squeegees aren't smooth,
Mm.
sometimes they'll dig a track through the emulsion somehow on both sides, and you'll get like a line of ink go down the shirt, which obviously isn't real cool.
Hmm.
But we usually tape that area, um, or we just make the squeegees that little bit longer. So no, I mean it depends. Like I think I'm right in saying we will do one and one on a 43,
Okay.
and I think on a 90 we do um, one on the inside, two on the outside, or one on the outside, two on the inside,
Hmm.
to try and get a thicker stencil. But no, generally not. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to print water base on them,
No.
or well, yeah, basically just water base. But yeah, no, it's just a faff of doing it, Got to get a drill, you got to mix it in, like you got to get the water, got to be warm, apparently. It's got to be distilled, which of course is
Hmm.
not really necessary. So yeah, we just buy Ulano, I think it is QX1, and we
Okay.
just buy like 10 gallons of it, 10 1 gallon tubs, and
I get individual ones. Yep.
yeah,
Easier to handle.
yeah, to pour them out. Otherwise it goes everywhere.
Mm.
Um, our biggest issue with coating is overfilling because we've got an auto coater, so it does both
Mm.
sides at once, is overfilling the actual coating troughs.
And
because
then getting a big bead on the side or
no,
getting it
because
everywhere else.
yeah, basically just pouring out because our autocoder called the T coat, which is awesome, has so much control over what you can do with the actual arms that go in and out and the pitch.
Okay.
And because we're lazy, if they start to run out of emulsion, what we do is we set it when it's tilted up just to wait that little bit longer, a few more
Oh yeah.
seconds. And if you forget that and then you go and fill them up, it just lifts up. And after a while, you're like, oh no, and emulsion goes everywhere. But it's just operator issue.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, no Diazo is the opinion of us. How long until you reclaim a screen? And do you charge a setup fee again if the client hasn't placed an order in a certain time frame for that design? Um, what do you do with that one, mate?
I I would still I don't keep screens on purpose. On by accident I will. Like I'll be like, I'll reclaim the oldest first, I guess. And if we get a job again, then that's a bonus. Um, but I would still charge them a setup fee as well because they don't know that it's not reclaimed yet, I guess. I feel like um I feel like in Australia especially, it seems like everyone has like mad screen stocks. Like they just keep a screen.
Yeah.
Whereas compared to like the States where you're sort of churning through them a bit quicker. But no, um I just reclaim them sort of from the oldest first, basically.
So for us, we only charge a setup fee. Setup fees are charged dependent on the size of the order.
Okay.
So if you get an order to 56 garments, generally, unless it's a 10 color or something, generally we wouldn't charge a setup fee, and that would be, you know, a minimum of 2 screens for a white print, let's say. But so there's several angles, I guess, to this question. One is if we had an order, as we did just yesterday, we had an order and the customer phoned up and said, could they add to the order? Well, the guys had printed it that day and it was on the
Uh,
truck. And I said to the team, I'll just keep the screens because, you know, there's a new order coming through. And the question was exactly that. Do we charge them for the screens? And for me, no, absolutely not. They're just sitting there ready. They're even inked up, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Ready to go. But if we had a long-term relationship with a customer where they're buying, every
Mm,
few months for several years, then they just don't get charged for screens anyway.
right.
How long before we reclaim? The answer is as quickly as we can, but um, yeah, everything just gets put in, bang, bang. We're going through tons of screens, and it's
Mm,
just whatever's nearest gets cleaned first, right?
mm,
Or if we're low on 90s, go find a ton of 90s. We have to dig in and get them. Um, Yeah, the setup fee thing I think is really difficult because my view is most people buying printed garments have no idea what a setup fee even is.
yeah.
So often we won't, or we'll put it in the description as free setup. But then
Mm,
you get a cruddy piece of artwork.
yeah.
Like there's that side to set up as well. And in that case, we usually go back and say, look, this is going to need a rebuild fee. Have you got any better artwork?
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
I I never I used to like charge for it, but I never used to like have a separate line item. It was built into our pricing,
yeah,
but it made our print price dearer, I guess, in the customer's eyes. And so it was only probably 6 months ago I started charging the setup fees sort of on a separate line item because everyone else does, I guess. So like it makes our print price look sort of on par with everyone else.
yeah,
Whereas before they wouldn't even compute that, Like they're not paying the setup fee, but our print price is dearer, whatever. Um, which I think is also half handy because then they're like, oh, we're paying the setup fee, like maybe we get a few more while we're going
Hmm.
rather than
Hmm.
coming back for smaller orders.
Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. I hadn't realized that, but you might be right. Um, if someone comes on for 20 garments, they're paying setup.
Mm.
Get
Or
20
like you said,
garments.
you can drop it off as like trying to like get that if you want that customer, it sort of looks good by saying not charged on this or whatever, free setup or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Looks better.
But yeah, it's a perennial problem knowing how
Mm.
to deal with that. Um, okay, do you set up your ink wall by Pantone number or
Mm.
color? Wow, okay. Got a few things to say, but what would you do with your Pantones? How do you?
We do it by color rather than number,
Yep.
but yeah, I've thought about changing it, but that's probably the easiest for us. You just look for the color and then try and find the number.
I saw a
Yeah.
video this week and I think it was Dylan from Upstate Merch visiting some quite large print shop or somebody like that. And, they're wandering around saying, oh, this is our washout area and these are all the autos. And you kind of look at those shops and think, oh man, that's crazy. Anyway, they went to the ink department
Mhm.
because that's what it was. And said, oh, this is where we keep all the Pantones. And they were like, oh yeah, yeah, they had gallon pots of the Pantones, and the guy goes, sort of got quite a few Pantones, and the guy goes, no, no, that's all the Pantones.
We have all of the
I have
Pantones.
all the Pantones pre-made. I was like, what? That's just
That's cool.
bonkers. We do it by color to answer the question, but we have put all of the Pantones we have and create into our database on Monday
Hmm.
so that you can obviously easily search on a Pantone number and check whether it's in stock, but also it's color barred, so you can
Oh,
filter it
cool.
by color. So let's say you've got 30 different greens, then it'll all say green.
Hmm.
So you can say, search for all the greens, but it also has the actual Pantone swatch color in it as well.
Oh.
So the reason this is helpful for us is one, to know whether we've already got the Pantone, but two, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes, the customer will say, oh, it's just an off-white, slightly
Mm.
cream. And you'll go, okay, this is called a Pantone swatch book. Have a look at it and tell us what number you want. And sometimes they'll oblige, but sometimes they come back and go, oh, just choose one that you think is close,
Huh.
which is a nightmare, right? Because, and so having that system allows them to do what we call a Pantone match. So they'll actually look at the artwork. They'll on a screen that's been configured as best it can be,
Mm.
and they'll look at what's there and they'll say, right, here's 30 greens. That one there looks the closest match. If it's a huge run, we'll then go back to the customer and say, we've chosen this Pantone. Are you okay with that?
Okay.
And they nearly always go, yeah, and we print it. So that's what we do. Um, and it works well. Um, and every time we create a new Pantone, we're doing them every week.
Hmm.
Guys will just update that, pull the Pantone swatch off the web and drop it in there. So we found that works really well.
Okay.
Um, I I'm a bit colorblind, not that I have to do the inks, which is
Huh.
probably just as well. So blues and greens are a nightmare for me. Um, but yeah, I don't think I'd ever put them in by number, you know, store them by number because color's king, isn't it, in that way?
Mm.
Um, do you send mock-ups before the client has paid or put down a deposit? And my answer is real quick, and no, absolutely not. We send mock-ups at the quoting stage, which is annoying because
Mhm.
sometimes they come back for change this and move that and make that a different color. And oh, here's a new piece of artwork,
Yeah.
Um, And there's a certain amount of disdain happens here in our office when someone's done six, you know,
Hmm.
mock-ups and the customer comes back for another one. And at that point, sometimes we'll say, look, this is getting a bit out of hand. If you carry on, we need to charge you $20 a mock-up or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, Having said that, if it's a big order, 1,000 pieces or something, obviously we do as many mock-ups as they want, right?
Yep.
But no, definitely not afterwards. We want to, for us, that's a really important part of customer relations is
Okay.
interacting with them with the mock-up. And I'll tell you one of the things I dislike about um, that whole world is, and I imagine, I don't know whether other people have this issue with the back print. Quite often a customer will say, can you set it a bit lower?
Mm.
Want it to be around where the armpits are, not realizing that that's different on every different size of t-shirt. And we normally just go back to them and say, look, we can do that, but we kind of know where it needs to go. And this is where it goes normally. And
Hmm.
nearly every time they'll say, oh, yeah, yeah, just put it where you normally put it. Um, yeah. How about you? What do you do with mock ups?
We do it after at the moment, if we can. But yeah, we do it before as well if the customer asks for it. And and it sort of seems like they're gonna go ahead. Um, but I'd say once we're on deco, we'll just do it at the same time. I think it might possibly get them over the line quicker because you sort of there's your price. That's what it's going to look like. You want to do it, press accept or whatever.
Mm,
But then yeah, you do also get the oh, can you make it a little bit bigger or whatever.
mm,
Um, but it is like it does add up. Like we've we've had a job that's sort of just been ongoing. And I thought it was an easy one, and we like touched up their artwork, and they came back and they want to change something else. And then by the time they're happy and they're going ahead, and then there's they're not really ordering. Like we've 1,000% lost money on it because of the amount of time that we've spent on it.
mm.
But um, yeah, I don't know. That's what that I guess that's why we try and do it afterwards. It's sort of, or at least accept the quote first. Um, yeah, it's that would be it more. If they've accepted the quote, then and if it that sort of feels like they're going to go ahead, then we'll just do it regardless if the payments come through yet.
Mm, mm. To be honest, I hadn't realized that people didn't do one before. It makes sense to me now, for sure. But yeah, no, we've only ever done it before.
Mhm.
Um, do you fold tees for the client on every job? Nah. Depends what you mean by fold.
Mm,
Like we put them in batches of six,
yeah.
fold that batch, and have a way of packing them. I guess most people would do that. We do fold and bag for specific customers. We've got a few high profile sports people that sell bagged at events. So we've, one of those or two of those little folding machines you get and just slide them into the bags, stick a label on them. But generally, no, we wouldn't. But I know people do. What
Mm.
do you do?
For like bulk stuff, we won't fold it. Because we do a bit of like uniform stuff. Um, Capable to like sort of make the presentation nice, I guess. So it depends what we have to do to get it all to fit in the box if they've got hats at the same
That's right.
time, basically.
Yeah.
um, but we've only did our first like fold and bag order probably 2 weeks ago. So that was interesting. Um, it wasn't too hard. I guess I didn't have to do it, which was nice. Um, but yeah, otherwise we just do like the fold in half sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. You, I guess it depends on what the customer's going to do with it.
Mm.
And, if it's a kids' camp, they're just going to literally dole them out when the kids queue up and get their size and everything. But if it's going on a shop floor, retail outlet, then it's a different thing. But I feel like presentation at the other end is so important.
Mm.
That's the main connect. Well, it's the only connection that the customer has with the actual product. Up until that point, it's digital mock-ups and
Mm.
repartee between us and the customer. And we do, as you know, try and connect what goes on in the actual production area with customers a bit more. So I feel like presentation is so important when they open up that box that they get a kind of
Yeah.
experience rather than they're all just stuffed in a box.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
We are
um,
quite particular about how neat they're folded, I guess. And just even just in half. But I think if we were actually doing a proper fold on a decent sort of order, we would charge that. It would be something they'd asked for, I guess.
yeah,
Or charge it or build it in.
yeah, we definitely charge to fold and bag. We charge obviously for that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think most people aren't expecting it to be like that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Mm.
Um, okay, Chook, bless her. Love to catch up with you, Chuck, and find out how things are going. You're well into the year now. Um, so Lismore, I seem to remember. No, not Lismore.
Yamba, I think.
Yamba, that's right.
Yamba.
Inked by Chuck. She wants to know how we all deal with customers that give you bad artwork.
Hmm. Story of our lives, I guess.
Yeah.
Every customer.
What do you do?
I'll try. It depends. I used to try and get a vector. I've a bit more often recently. I've just been, if it needs it, I'll just redraw it without having to go back. Otherwise, like if it's a smaller order, I'll like charge them like a redraw fee and send them the artwork as it like a bit of a sort of it makes them feel good because now they've got a better artwork. Or we did have like a pretty big company. We did a bunch of like Christmas gift packs for, and whoever like must have sort of redrawn their logo did a shocking job, and we just like touched it up and sent it back as like sort of like a value add, I guess. Um, but yeah, we either charge for it or just get it done to save the back and forth of them looking and not knowing, or
Mm.
looking and sending us the right file extension with the wrong with the wrong artwork in it.
Dot AI, and it's just
dot
a
dot
PNG
AI
file.
dot PNG.
It is a problem. And just like you, we charge for rebuild. It's interesting because at that stage for us, the job's in production. It comes through to artwork,
Hmm.
and we look at it and go, well, that's pants. We can't do much with that. And we make that question very quickly. Is it a real quick rebuild? A couple of circles and some words or whatever. Well, we just get on and do it, right?
Hmm.
We let them know that we did a free rebuild, but if it's only going to take a few minutes, that's what we do. But if it's a really big change, we go back and say, look, your artwork's pants. Have you got anything better? We can rebuild this for you. It's going to cost X. What do you want to do? And that either shakes them into life. Oh, yeah, we can get the artwork from the designer and you get
Mm.
an AI file. Or they just go, oh, yeah, yeah, please rebuild, which we do, and then send it back to them for approval. Um, then we say, hey, we got your artwork on file now. So when you come back for your new order, it's easy peasy. Um, but one thing I did want to say is sometimes you'll get a vector that's what I call a dirty file. And by that, I mean it's maybe a designer has created a fabulous piece of artwork.
Mm.
They know nothing about screen printing or color separations, and it's just dirty.
The
You
layers are
start,
all yucky.
yeah, and there's bits missing on the side, or there's an overlay of color that shouldn't be there. that's a nightmare because usually the customer has employed a designer, and so your relationships with the customer,
Mm,
and you got to go back to them and say, this is actually pretty cruddy. Do you want us to rebuild it, or do you want your designer to rebuild it? Because
uh-huh.
and sometimes they just say, look, just fix it up or whatever. And sometimes we end up dealing with the actual designer. And
Okay.
I don't know what it is about graphic designers. Apologies if there are any listening, but you're a special breed and a little bit too precious about your artwork, which I get, it's your artwork. But, this is a commercial industry. We're trying to turn it into something that we can print.
Mm,
Um, or you'll get that designer that thinks they know all about screen printing because they did it at school,
uh-huh.
and they kind of dictate to you how it should be, and that obviously bugs me. Um, yeah, so that's how we deal with them. I did one. Paul Smith in the UK, Ministry of Shirts UK is up and running now,
Awesome.
and yeah, he came on this week or last week and said, "What do we do with this piece of artwork?" Now he's pretty proficient in AI in Illustrator. It was like a fuzzy felt, it was so blurry, it was unbelievable. Um, and I just did a quick video and redid it in 10 minutes and sent it over and said, this is how you rebuild this. And that was important for him because it's a new deal, it's a new
Mm,
customer. And I think the customer was quite happy with that, but it is difficult. Or you'll ask, the other thing that happens, of course, is they give you a PNG and you say, look, I need what's called a vector. Can you go back and sort that out? And they just, like you're suggesting earlier, they just take the PNG, drop it into Illustrator, save it out as an Illustrator file. And like, this is a crummy raster image.
uh-huh.
That does my head in when that happens. But
I've had I've had like like the marketing person like for like a brewery locally, and we went back and forth like a few times. It just Yeah, I was like, I don't know how much you should be getting paid because it was, yeah, like just the same. Like she must have Illustrator or whatever, but she just kept saving it in different formats, but it was still the same like artwork. And then it was redrawn, I think. She must have like put it through like a converter or something and it like lost all the detail and sent that through. I was like, and we just redrew an older one and didn't even say anything because they wouldn't have been happy with the one that they supplied in Vector because it didn't have
yeah.
the detail in it anymore.
Tell you, we
But
had a really funny one this week. I'm the art department, as you may know, and is for a dance group, and they're a customer we've had for years and years, and they're doing some big dance thing, and it's to do with Cat in the Hat, and they produced some artwork which was just a PNG, but it was clearly copyrighted Cat in the Hat stuff, and we just went back and said, "Hey, look, I don't think we can print this. Do you have anything else?" And they said, "Well, could you come up with something else?"
mm,
Martini just sent them an invoice for whatever, and it came through for me to deal with, and I contacted them. And they sent an image. What was it? They said this will give you an understanding of the color flavor that we're looking for. And right then I knew I was in a bad place.
uh-huh.
This can only get worse. Color flavor. Um, and so I spoke to her and said, "What are you looking for? Just come up with something." Like, what?
Yes.
I said, this could take a long time if you don't give me a brief, and we're all going to get frustrated, and it's going to cost you a lot more money.
Mm.
Anyhow, I came up with something, and she accepted it straight away. Like,
Okay.
unbelievable. That was really cool. Um, but yeah, perennial issue.
Mm.
Um, okay, I got some. Do you want to keep going? Got a few more.
Yeah, whenever.
Yeah. These are from Ben and Taryn. I mentioned them earlier from Thunder and Sun. They're a clothing brand, and they're screen printers. They do it themselves. They don't buy from others. And they're quite new into this, so there's a million questions, but I'm just going to go through a few of them. First one is dip tanks. What are they good for? Good question. You use dip
Everything.
tanks? Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. Storing your sandwiches in.
Yeah.
What do you do with yours?
We've got one for reclaim, and I want to set up the other one that I think we got from you. We got, yeah, your old one. I want to set
Okay.
that one up for like just to soften the stencil.
Emotion.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then to wash out. But mainly it's just the reclaim.
Exactly the same as us. We've got two. I'd forgotten we had three.
Hmm.
But I did think the other day, maybe we should get another one. And I'll tell you why in a second. Um, yeah, so exactly the same as you. We have one for softening the emulsion once you've exposed the screen so that it blows out a bit quicker. We'd put a screen in there probably for no more than a couple of minutes. We put the lid on as well, keep it in the dark.
Oh yeah,
And then usually the emulsion will fall out much more easily without any pressure. Um, and the other one we use for reclaiming. So, reclaiming chemical.
that's it's an expensive thing, like the chemical and the actual um the tank, but it is like when you're used to like just normal reclaim with the spraying it on the screen and then you do your, oh, I think it should take this long, and you pull it out and there's no stencil on there at all because you've left it in too long. It's amazing.
Yeah, you've literally got seconds. Um, yeah, and someone asked me to do a video on this, and I hate doing videos, but I was thinking about it given that I was doing them this week, doing screens this week. Um, there's actually quite a lot to the process to get right because of the power of those chemicals. And I think it's largely about timing. Like there's a kind of rhythm to it when you're doing hundreds of screens and you want to kick through 20 in an hour, let's say. You've got to be really on your toes around the timing of how long it takes you to remove the ink or how
Mm.
you remove it as well. Um, and obviously the time that it's dipped. And I rethought that when I was doing screens this week. And I got a different model because as you probably do, we try and put almost nothing down the plug hole by way of ink and
Mm.
obviously any of those dip tank chemicals. So we make it a bit hard for ourselves in a way, but we're now using a new, I wish I knew what it was called. Yeah, I'll have to go and find out what it's called, but a new chemical to remove the plastisol. So what we do is you put it in the washout booth, spray that chemical on, just get like a scourer and totally, deplete that ink, but leave it on the screen.
Hmm.
Get it in the dip tank and use another scourer, making sure that they're all different ones. You don't want to mix them all up. And we scour that ink off, but at the same time, we're softening the emulsion with a reclaiming chemical, front and back.
Uh,
And which only takes 30 seconds. Take it out, put it to one side, and we just put it in the lid of the tank, and do 5 of those in a go. And then by the time we've done the fifth one, the first one's ready to blow out. So it's really only in the dip tank for a little while because that chemical's
uh,
still working on it when it's
mm,
sitting out. And sometimes we have to dip it back and take a little bit more out, but then we blow it out. So the inks come off, the ink's in the tank, which for us will eventually go into an IBC tank and be taken away on a truck to be cleansed, um, which costs a lot of money, but I still feel it's good to do.
mhm.
But by the time you've got it reclaimed, like I said earlier, I think we just spray it with the hazer at that point, and
Okay,
we do the 5 again, and then we start on the first one blowing it out. So you've got your timing set up, if you see what I mean. The
right.
rhythm's there. and that way you can fly through them pretty quick. But I was thinking about that as I was doing it because someone asked me to do that video, and um, it depends how many screens you got in life, right? And how quickly you need them. If you're going
Mm.
through 30 screens a day, then you need to have a pretty good process. But if you've only got 20 screens and you're using one every 2 days or something, it's just no point investing in a dip tank. It's just, they're very
Mm.
expensive. The chemicals going to cost you $500 a time
Yeah.
or thereabouts. And, you can just do it manually, fine. It's okay. There are um, trips and traps to watch out for doing that. Um, but yeah, certainly when you do get one, you're like, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Mm.
Makes life a lot easier. But like you say, if you leave it in too long and you take it out, you know
It's just
that
nothing.
the chemical's going to be depleting pretty quick.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that to last. Okay, here's a good one. If you were starting fresh, what would be your entry level kit? Maybe a couple of options like the dollar level. Um, yeah, what is he saying here? Yeah, the cheap, the medium, and the expensive level, I think is what he's saying. What would you start with if you were starting again,
Mm. I
kit
was
wise?
pretty lucky that I picked up like a complete kit basically with a conveyor oven as well. So I never had to endure the flash curing or whatever. Um, I would definitely do that if you can get not like a second hand conveyor dryer and then um, a flash with a sensor on it. I think
Yes,
that's worth it. You don't
yeah,
have to worry about how long it's underneath there then.
I agree. Um, it's difficult. It's kind of like a passage of rights.
Mm,
Everyone's got to start with a heat
something.
gun or whatever, and gradually build up. And of course, this stuff's expensive. But I agree. I think every purchase we've ever made, when you step up to another level of kit, we've always said, "Oh wow, I wish we'd done that last year or whatever." But then you don't want to chuck money at it if the business isn't coming in.
Mm,
But I'd agree with that. A tunnel dryer, definitely. Good flash with a switch. So it goes on automatically and off automatically. Um, if you can, get a press with micro edge, whether
mm,
it's whatever form it is, because with a manual, you're going to want to make that as quick as possible. And also you might want to do those tiny adjustments as you're printing if there's a long run or you got a loose screen or something. So getting a good press is important. I feel like if you don't go for the tunnel and you just do everything with a flash in terms of fully curing the shirt, the risks of getting it wrong are huge, both in terms of
mm.
burning the shirt, but also under curing it at the other extreme.
Yeah.
So stepping up to a goodish oven is a good one. What about exposure unit?
I probably until a year ago, I just had that one that I bought with the original kit. Just it was a homemade one. Um, just UV fluoros or whatever underneath. But it was made out of like MDF or something, and it started to warp. So I had to have like some very strategically placed bricks on the top. um, but yeah, that did the job for ages. I think exposure units and exposure unit, a nice like, and it took like 7 minutes to do. I have an LED one now, it takes like 20. Um, so it's
20
nice, but
seconds. 20
yeah,
seconds, not 20 minutes.
yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, 20 seconds, yeah. If that. Um, so I think that's nice, but I don't think you really need to start out with an awesome exposure unit.
I agree. What did we do? We built one just like the one hopefully you didn't buy it off us. But anyway, we built one and it was great. And
Hmm.
ironically, it was about 8 or 9 minutes to cure. Um, it's not rocket science, you know. People try and talk about it as if it is sometimes, I think.
Mm.
And then we went to the full Booner metal halide
Oh
version,
yeah.
which sounded like a um, Hawker Harrier taking off when you turned it on. It was so loud. Um, but it also took about 7 minutes for the bulb just to get warmed up.
Mm.
So you didn't want to kind of do one screen, you know, you wanted to have your day's screens done in one go. And then, but that was also very clunky in terms of how it worked. It was fine. And everyone says, oh, the metal halide's the best. The light doesn't do this, that, and the other. And the spectrum is wonderful and all that kind of
Mm.
thing. And I'm sure that's true, but we didn't really notice a huge difference. And then we went to the Anatole Aurora, I think, which is the LED version, and it'll do a 90T screen in about 8 seconds.
Mm.
So when you're doing tons and tons of screens, that's just so helpful, you know.
Yeah.
And it's no sweat, you know. If you've got a problem, let's just burn another one, put it in, get it done. Um, so yeah, I do know people that are using like the halogen lamps from Bunnings.
Mm.
We actually did that now I think about it with a little plate of glass.
Mm.
Worked fine. The main thing is having control,
Mm.
being able to repeat the process the same each time. And so it does take a while to dial those things in. But even if, like we were talking earlier about coating screens, even if you make a decision to triple coat them, let's say when you normally only single coat them, you'll need to make that allowance when it comes
Mm.
to burning your screens. So once you got it dialed in, stick to it would be my advice on it. But I think they're the pieces of kit I would buy. Good squeegees, obviously. Um, Making sure you don't use the same squeegees forever because they do go blunt and it will make a
Mm.
difference.
Oh,
You'll experience that on your auto more now. Now you've
oh,
got,
going blunt.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, you'll be able to tell by ear after a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you keep that up to date. Turn them around, reuse them if you can. Um, yeah,
Um, a exposure calculator, like an all-in-one.
good
That
idea.
would be the go. That saves so much time.
Good idea. And a temperature gun.
Mm.
Can't live without that. You got to get the temperature right. Um, oh well, these questions are good. Just a few more, and then I think we'll call it a day. Where do you go to learn a screen printer, especially now that TAFE courses are no longer running? Wow, I didn't know that about TAFE courses. Um, what would you do if you were starting out now and you knew what you knew, but you knew that you needed to learn all that stuff?
I would still go YouTube. That's how I learned. I would like to maybe do a proper course. Um I think Dark Label would use like someone who does like a proper course, which is cool. I don't think it's not a common thing anymore, so that's pretty awesome. Um yeah, I think YouTube's the place these days.
I think so. That was us. I think, Dark Label. There's an apprenticeship scheme. I think that was
Mm.
what they were doing, if I remember correctly. So there might be apprenticeship opportunities around the country, um, or just go to a printer and say, "Hey, teach me how to clean a screen." You know, do a few hours a week, learn how to burn a screen. You know, pick it up that way. Um, I think one of the things about screen printing, if you're starting out from nothing, is that none of it is rocket science, but there are so many components to learn.
Mm. Gonna piss
Right?
you off.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you got to learn about artwork. You got to learn about film. You got to learn about how to expose, as we were just saying, how to coat a screen. And then when you get to that stage, you've got to learn how to load a t-shirt,
Mm.
um, which isn't as easy as it looks. And then you've actually got to physically print it and then flash it and then print it and then cure it. And there's just so many different steps and things can go wrong at every step. And I think it'd be good if you just had a course where you could go for a day and just learn all of that and just repeat it. Do you know what I mean? Like, right,
Mm.
do another one. Here's another screen. But get it from cradle to grave. Um, I looked into that apprenticeship thing in terms of employing
Uh-huh.
people as apprentices, and I got quite far down the track. This is a few years ago. And then I discovered in order for us to do that, I have to be qualified.
Yeah, good point.
I've got to go on an apprenticeship scheme. And I was like, it's not worth it, you know. But similarly, you could just find someone that will be happy to kind of take you on and show you. Um, yeah, I think that's and like you say, YouTube. I think the
Mm.
trouble I have with YouTube, and I hate the whole, um, you know, hey, this is how you burn a screen, like
Hmm.
that kind of video thing does my head in. But they always leave out the secret sauce.
Yeah,
There's always something they don't tell you, and may or may not be deliberate. But the tricks are the things that are hard to kind of pick up. Um, so for example, if someone's showing you how to actually print manually, uh, they'll say, "Oh, you got to do a backflood, and then you do, your proper pull." And they never explain how to do a backflood.
mm,
They never really explain what squeegee angle and how you manage pressure and how you move your body. And like, I'm sure some of them do, but there's always a bit of the secret sauce that's missing, and it bugs me. And some of it is counterintuitive. Knowing whether you've overexposed or underexposed the screen when you start out is quite tricky.
yeah.
You often think you've overexposed them when in actual fact you haven't exposed them enough.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, resurrect TAFE, that's the answer. What is it you love about screen printing that keeps you coming back? Gosh, don't know if I love it anymore. What about you?
Sometimes I wonder. Um, for me, it's probably just like like that first like print down. If you get it, like yeah, seeing it on the like whatever artwork on the shirt for the first time, and it comes out like you got a nice white or whatever. It's like yeah, and it clears the screen, sweet. You're like, ooh.
Yeah,
But then you have to actually do the rest of the work, and then especially when you're doing it manually, I lose the love pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah. It
But
can be
that first bit, it's
just
cool.
hard yards. I agree. For me, it's the whole deal. Like the idea that somebody out there comes, in our case, onto your site or in through your door and has a vision about what they're after. You know, I got this idea. I got this artwork. We had a guy come in last week, and he's I'm going to say he's 20 years old, and he's just got this vision for a brand, a clothing brand, and he's done these little designs. He did them in AI, and um, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Oh yeah, this will look really good, screen printed like this or on that," and just sort of taking that and getting it to the point where his t-shirts are in a box,
Mm.
he's opening them, like
Yeah,
knowing what you know about how you had to get what you had to do to get that in the box like that. To me, that's really neat. You
yeah.
know, I was a management consultant before I did this, and it's a lot of hot air, to be blunt. And you get well paid for hot air, but
Mm.
you're not really manufacturing anything. You're producing ideas, creating strategies, plans about delivery, raising money, that kind. It's all interesting, but this is different because you're dealing with someone else's precious baby, right? And it could be that that baby is their artwork. It could be that it's their event. or it
Mm.
could be that it's their customer that they want to impress. And you're dealing with that for them, managing that through tons of different processes to get it into a box and out to them. That to me, that whole kind of experience is good.
Yeah.
When we get positive feedback on Google or reviews or whatever, we always take a screenshot of it and we put it in the shop WhatsApp group just so
Mm.
everyone gets it and they get a sense of how happy the customer is. Occasionally you get a customer that'll do an unboxing video.
Yeah.
They're really neat when customers do that. Um, yeah, or the other day we had some guy, some leather manufacturer or something, do take some photos himself and put them on our Google
Hmm.
photos, which is really neat. So yeah, I think that's what I like about it, and it is enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's when it's going badly, it's terrible though.
Yeah. That that unbox, like if the customer picks up and you're like, oh, do you want to have a look at them? And they're like, yeah. It's like the most terrifying
It is.
moment, but also the most rewarding, I think.
If there's a pause,
A long
something's
pause.
not great, you think, oh no. But mostly it's like, oh wow, look at
Hmm.
that. That's amazing. Yeah. I miss doing printing. Like when we get that manual going again, that 8 color, I'm hoping, and it might just be a pipe dream, but hoping to do some more personal projects.
Okay.
And I miss that side of it, the kind of chemistry of those processes working together. The experience of manually printing and lifting the screen and seeing
Mm.
what you're doing is more exciting in a way than an auto. Autos are exciting, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's what I love about it. Couple more. What's your favorite shirt blank? Oh, can we guess each other's? So what's your favorite shirt blank for printing? I'm going to say for you, if it's an AS color, that it's the
Mm.
classic T.
Which one?
What do you mean? The
Which
faded.
classic?
Well, there is only one, isn't there? 5026. Isn't that the one?
I no, I like the classic minus, but yes, the classic
Oh,
too.
sorry. Yeah. In terms of the size. Yeah, that's right. It's
Yeah.
the minus. So you like
Hmm.
the minus. Why? Because
Because
it's,
I've my torso is like Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. It's short.
oh, okay. You got a shorter torso.
Yep, but I
Yeah.
like classics to go.
Why do you like the classic?
Just a bit roomier, a bit comfier. Um, I find the staple is quite long and skinny,
Yeah.
and sometimes I think it's a little bit inconsistent
Yeah.
in length. Sometimes a large staple's pretty bloody long.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think it's a nice balance of weight. The heavy teas can get pretty hot up here,
Yeah.
but yeah, classic's the best fit, I reckon.
And what do you reckon mine is?
I reckon it's not an AS Color product,
Okay.
but I don't know what it would be. I feel like you might have mentioned something else in the past.
I do like Comfort Color.
Mm,
And I did like American Apparel. I'm less interested in those now, but Comfort Color I like largely for the color and the shape,
mhm.
but they're a pain to print because, as we all know, they're dyed post manufacture, so you can get dye migration,
Mm,
and you can never remember which colors migrate and which don't.
yeah.
But I think they're a nice tea. But actually, classic is my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, so just the same. Um, I love the print on a staple,
Mhm.
but the print on a classic is unlike any other, in my view.
Yeah.
Um, Not such a fan of blocks or basics. There's a new block out. Have you seen that? The
But
tubular block?
yeah, we just
Yeah,
printed. We did like 100 and something of them this week. Yeah.
quite good. Good value tea.
Yeah. That's what it was, a giveaway or something. So they're just,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly what it's for, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd go for the I think this is even a classic tea.
Yeah,
Um,
same actually.
yeah, right. Yeah, so that says it all in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Um, but I certainly know, the guys will balk. Like that, we've got one customer that insists that JB's Ware tea is the best tea out
Mm,
there, the standard tea. I forget what the model is. Um, and it's horrible to print on. It's just not, doesn't produce a nice print, And
I've
so
never I never screen printed on one yet. But
you'll see when you get there. I mean, I'm probably being picky. Most customers probably wouldn't care, but
mm,
I think when you're printing, you really like to see a nice print, well done, well, laid down well on the garment, adhering to the garment well. The heavy's a fantastic t-shirt, apart from it being too hot, which you mentioned.
yeah.
The weave is quite big. So sometimes, the print is never going to be as smooth as something like a classic or a staple.
Hmm.
But yeah. Last question then. This I think is probably a biggie. Um, what business structure would you go for, your screen print business? So
Mm,
guessing he means, would you go for like a company or a sole proprietor or a partnership, or it's pretty much it really. Can't really go
mm.
for a PLC. Um, so what do you think? What is your business structure?
I'm just a sole trader at the moment, but I think next year will change to a company.
And
I
what's the
think
reason for that, would you say?
probably like liability and tax, really. Um, yeah. And then sort of I like the idea of not being so tied to it. Like one day I might want to, it'd be cool to like sell it or something. You got a sort of long history of it being its own thing. I think that's pretty valuable.
Mm, mm.
Um, what about you?
Same company every time for me. All of my businesses have been companies, and same reasons, limited liability, although that's getting harder, I think.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, limited liability, better tax arrangements, um, and the same deal, right? Like you're incorporated, it's a legal entity of its own.
Mm,
In a metaphorical sense, it can be forklift up and moved somewhere else, or at least sold onto someone else, right? It's got assets, it's got going concern in terms of custom um and yeah, easier to manage in that regard, but more expensive.
mm.
Need different
I,
kind of rigors around how you do your accounts and the timings of those things. But I feel like they're the best vehicle for running a business.
mm. I think depends what you want to do. Like sole traders, just easy to get started. But then also like if you're looking to finance things in your personal life, it also I think that would probably affect it a fair bit as well because yeah, it can be pretty volatile at times. Like if a, it might not necessarily look that flash on paper to a bank that like you've spent X amount or whatever. At least that way they're just saying that you're getting paid a wage and they're not so concerned about yeah, like where that money's coming from, I guess.
So on paper, it looks better to a bank
Mm,
to be owning a company and being salaried by that company as an employee.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
I
know if
feel
that's
like,
true or not, but that's what
no, I think it is. I think it is. Same way that, if you want to get a mortgage and you're just working on a casual contract,
mm,
it doesn't look so good as having a permanent contract or a 2-year fixed term
yeah.
contract or something. I think that's probably true. Um, Yeah, I think you kind of have a different if you're building a brand, let's say in your business, and you're a sole trader, the brand's not really fixed to anything. It's kind of out there. It's a bit disconnected. It's
Mm,
you in a
mm,
sense, right? But if it's a company, you're building a legal entity's brand of it, all of its own, and it owns it in a different way. I think the tax incentives, opportunities are better. Um, but there are parts of it I think are harder to manage running a company as opposed to a sole proprietor. What I will say is, and I'm just hoping one of my colleagues isn't listening to this because she's about to go into a partnership with two other people.
mm.
I, as a general principle, do not recommend partnerships.
Yeah, I
And
would
the
agree.
reason, yeah, the reason I give for that is that so often getting, everybody's got their expectation about what this business is going to do, how successful it's going to be, how easy it's going to be for you to do this. And it'll be okay because you have total control, right? Optimism bias.
Mm,
I can control all the outcomes. The classic one is if I work harder for my exams, I'll pass them. It's not necessarily true.
mm,
And it's bad enough doing that on your own. But if you multiply that by one or two or however many others that are partners, there's bound to be uh, a miss or disconnection around the expectations. I thought you were
yeah.
going to do this. No, no, that's what you were meant to do, you know, and people end up falling out
Mm,
and, divorces happen. Um, Friends are lost, brothers, like, I mean, having said that, although this is a company, it's half owned by myself and half by one of my daughters. So
mm,
it's a kind of partnership feel, but we're not building it for us. We're building it as the entity. So we own that, but that
mm.
means we can sell that, right? And so I always feel partnerships, you've got to be pretty special for it to be a good partnership. The other thing, of course, you can do is create a company and then put it in a trust.
Mm,
And that's the other thing that some people do, which changes the dynamic and actually the legal status of the business because of the way trusts work with tax. But that is, I've seen people do that before, and that is an interesting model. But yeah, I think company every time. Um, it's not expensive to get that set up in this country.
okay.
Um, in fact, you can do that online
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
pretty quickly. Again, take some advice on that if you're going to do that and watch out for all the caveats and things. I owned as I mentioned earlier, a consulting company and we decided it would be good to create a separate arm in consulting that dealt with the health sector. And so we started that as a second company that was wholly owned by the parent company.
Oh, yeah.
And then we decided down the track to dissolve that company, the second one, the health one. Man, what a nightmare that was getting the accounting right and well, just disconnecting it and ending, winding it up. It was,
Hmm.
they've got to be careful with those things, but keep it simple. Um, and there are different rules. There's in Australia, if you run a company, you've got to have a constitution, but there is a mechanism known as replaceable rules, I think it's called.
Oh,
Allows you to run it as a sole director, and there are benefits of that. So look into that, but keep it simple. Don't turn it into some great grand thing with all these different directors. That'll just complicate everything as you're trying to get going. Oh, the other thing about it, we should say, is if you want investment, then you're not really going to get investment from an external source as a sole proprietor. As a
mm,
company, you can share things up. You're buying into a certain number of shares and so on, and
okay.
contributing perhaps to the strategy of the business, and
Mm,
that's a route to growth for some people. Um, okay, wow. brilliant questions. Thanks so much to everyone that submitted those. That's awesome. We only covered a few of them, so we'll maybe try and do some more next time.
Yeah.
Any final words or comments from yourself?
No, I think yeah, got some good topics lined up for next time, and I think it'd be good to do another thing. See if we
Yeah.
can get a guest on. If you're keen, please hit one of us up. We'd love to have someone on. If we
Yeah.
can get our schedules all aligned.
I never realized how hard that would be. It is a night.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, do get in touch. Josh, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way? Email?
Ooh, Josh, yeah, email's best, josh@northprint.com.au or
Uh,
Sam at
you you can contact me if you want, Sam at ministryshirts.com.au. Yeah, reach out, send a question, comment, do whatever you need to do. We're not interested in likes and subscribing necessarily. If you feel like doing that, you can. We just love talking about this industry. So if you want to be a guest, hit us up. We'll try and work out a time. But it'd certainly be good to kind of share the screen print love and hear from other people.
Hmm.
We've only got one perspective, of course, or two here, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's good
Saturday
to,
Arvos seems like the best sort of time. So if you're free Saturday Arvo, we'd love to.
that's a good recording time for us
Mhm.
anyway. All right. Well, we'll say goodbye. Thanks, Josh. I'll catch you
Great.
next time. Have a great week, mate.
You too, Sam. Thank you.
All right, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.